Hello and welcome to the .cms Content Architect training course. This is a brief introduction discussing what we'll cover throughout the course. First of all, who is this course for? Within .cms, there are a number of roles that anyone could play, including a server admin, a developer, whether they are Java or web, a content contributor, or, of course, the content architect. But what is a content architect? The content architect handles the creation and setup of content types, containers, templates, relationships, users, and roles, as well as other advanced features such as the .cms time machine, site search, custom workflows, and much more. Our agenda for this course is as follows. We'll start with a basics portion, covering the core .cms knowledge necessary for the content architect. Then we'll move into an intermediate portion, delving into the more advanced concepts and features .cms has to offer. Finally, we'll explore the enhanced portion, exploring features which may enhance your .cms implementation through optional features. In the basics portion, we'll cover a product overview, file content types, page content types, creating content types, taxonomy, sites, and templating. In the intermediate portion, we'll cover URL mapping within content types, menu links and vanity URLs or navigation, custom workflow schemes, configuring push publishing, basic permissions, and advanced permissions. And finally, in our enhanced portion, we'll cover form content types, site search, CMS maintenance, the time machine, internationalization basics, and rules engine and personalization. Let's start at the beginning. In our .cms overview, we'll familiarize ourselves with a top-down look at .cms. We'll review the front end, the overall features of .cms, and the back end. In our second portion of basics, we'll cover file asset content types. We'll create file assets and explore their properties. We'll cover exploring adding file assets, reviewing system fields, and reviewing file metadata. In Basics 3, we'll cover page content types. We'll explore those content types and their properties, and we'll cover adding pages and reviewing the system fields of those. In 4, we'll cover creating new content types and the various fields. So we'll review the system fields, review standard and URL map fields, and publish and expire fields. In Basics 5, we'll cover content taxonomy, setting up content categories, tags, and relationships. So we'll cover categorizing content, tagging content, and relating our content types. And in Basic 6, we'll cover sites, how to set up our host for our site or multiple sites to use. We'll cover site variables and copying a site. In Basic 7, we'll cover making our site pages look and act the way that we want, including formatting container content, reusing containers on templates, creating an advanced template, and creating a design template. Moving on to intermediate, we'll start off discussing URL maps on content types. In this, we'll map our URL patterns, talk about detail pages, and our URL title field code. In Intermediate 2, we'll discuss customizing our navigation with menu links and vanity URLs. We'll discuss setting up navigation, adding content to our menus, and setting up those vanity URLs. In Intermediate 3, we'll cover custom workflow schemes, making our backend work exactly how we want it to. We'll discuss planning a workflow, adding and editing workflow steps, workflow actions and sub-actions, and content permissions and states. In Intermediate 4, we'll talk about push publishing, how we can streamline our content publishing or our sites. We'll cover adding senders and receivers, the publishing queue, and adding content to the queue. In Intermediate 5, we'll talk about basic permissions, ensuring our users can access what they should. We'll start with planning role permissions, creating new roles, and assigning and locking roles. And in Intermediate 6, we'll talk about advanced permissions. We'll dig a bit deeper into our permissions, properties, and role inheritance and permission inheritance. So of course, we'll cover that inheritance. We'll talk about content versus user or role permissions and the role key. Next, moving into our enhanced portion, we'll start off with the form content type. Here we'll talk about setting up forms, fields, and permissions, creating our form content type, modifying those forms and their permissions, adding forms to our pages, and viewing form submissions. In Enhanced 2, we'll talk about our site search, how we can empower our site with search and indexing. We'll cover creating a new index and aliases, We'll talk about the Index Job Scheduler and searching, downloading, and restoring indexes. In Enhanced 3, we'll discuss CMS maintenance, how we can keep our CMS running smoothly. We'll cover backend logging and threads, reindexation and flushing caches, logged users, and the license manager. In Enhanced 4, we'll talk about the time machine, reviewing the history and future of our site with snapshots. We'll cover scheduling and viewing those snapshots, future views with publishing, and expire fields on content types. In Enhanced 5, we'll talk about internationalization basics, making our site more flexible for other languages. We'll cover adding new languages to our site, adding language variables, and multilingual content. And finally, in Enhanced 6, we'll talk about Rules Engine and personalization, setting up our rules and user-specific experiences. So, of course, we'll cover rules and conditions, actions for those rules, personas and page personas, and how we can manage our visitors and their experience. Again, I'd like to welcome you to our Content Architect training course, and I would like to ensure that you're aware of the Docs site, our documentation site with lots of helpful resources that we recommend you review for further information.